Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Tom Roberts is here, the Assemblyman. He's running for Clark County Sheriff, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Events Center in Las Vegas. Host meetings and events on 2 floors. Stay in luxurious rooms and suites. Unlimited branding opportunities. Regional Italian cuisine by Chef Mark Segrisi. Flexible event spaces. Full buyout options. Visit ahernhotel.com today.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. Entertainment here at the Carson Valley Inn is extraordinary.
Yeah, super proud of the TJ's Corral, our outdoor venue, about 1,500 seats. We've had first-class entertainment out there. We've had Merle Haggard, we've had Chris Young, we've had Lee Brice a couple times, we've had Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, who's in the Hall of Fame. We're real proud out there, and it's just a great time. Watch CarsonValleyInn.com and grab those tickets early. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
A parade sets the stage for the greatest show in the biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada.
It's a legacy that began over 100 years ago and continues today. The Reno Rodeo. Still the wildest, richest rodeo in the West. Keeping it old school at the Reno Rodeo 2022, June 16th to the 25th. For tickets, go to renorodeo.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, coming to you from the Ahern Hotel in Las Vegas. We are pleased to welcome back to the program Assemblyman Tom Roberts. He is running for Clark County Sheriff. Pleasure to have you back on the program, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam. It's a pleasure being here.
Always. Quite a few people were surprised that you got the endorsement of the Las Vegas Chamber just last week as we're taping this. What brought about their endorsement as against going for Kevin McMahill, which most people thought they were going to go in that direction?
Well, look, I've got a reputation, and they said this in their news releases, I've got a reputation of working with people. I've been a good ally of the Chamber. I've been pro-business in my 2 terms in the Nevada Assembly, and I think they saw some value in that. I was a known commodity to them, and they felt comfortable in endorsing me for sheriff.
What kind of response did you get from others in terms of, I would imagine that was good for fundraising?
Well, yeah, it was very positive. There's a lot of businesses here in Southern Nevada, and a lot of people felt that endorsement was a big deal, and it did assist me in fundraising a little bit.
You have heard, as a lot of us in the business have heard, of comments that were made apparently by Kevin McMahill to various board members of the Chamber when he didn't get the endorsement. How did you regard those and his apparent apology afterwards?
Well, I had several members of the Government Affairs Committee reach out to me and basically tell me that he had called and made some very pointed comments to them. And in actuality, that's what helped my fundraising more so than the endorsement. It was his reaction to it, which actually brought in quite a few unexpected checks. I was a little surprised that somebody would react that way. I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for him. I've seen him react that way before in the past when I worked with him, but usually in this.
For example?
I've had other friends and colleagues that had endorsed me in the past, And when they did so, he immediately reached out to them and had some very pointed conversations with those individuals, and very uncomfortable, almost threatening in manner. And so it's not necessarily out of line for him.
Okay, so what does that say about potential temperament if he were to become sheriff?
Well, I mean, it is indicative of losing your cool in certain circumstances and being mature about certain things. I think you want a sheriff, you want somebody that is cool, calm, and not very emotional, and is going to respond accordingly when things happen.
Sheriff Lombardo, the current sheriff and running for governor, did endorse him.
Yes.
Do you think he's having second thoughts about that?
I doubt it. I know that I know he and Kevin go way back. They worked together for the last 7 years. He's pretty adamant about his endorsement of Kevin. I don't think he would change course. That's just not like Joe.
You retired in 2018 as assistant sheriff.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about some of the things here. The issues, obviously, that Las Vegas Metro has been dealing with. Is fentanyl one of the largest issues that the department is dealing with?
It's a very large issue in our community and the U.S. in a whole. There's, that's a very dangerous drug that causes a ton of overdoses in our community. Since I've left, we started a unit at Metro to go after sellers or that are anytime we have an overdose death, we try to work those things backwards to find out where they obtained the narcotics from. That's been successful to some degree. I know there's some programs to cut off the flow of fentanyl into our community. I think it's a huge issue. Overdoses are too high, and it's something that needs to be addressed more so in the future.
Do you think the problem in general lies with the flow of drugs to the United States, or the ability of people in the United States to consume and want to consume those drugs?
Well, it's a demand, right? If there's a demand here in the U.S., then people are going to find a way to fill it, whether it's coming across the southern border. Fentanyl originally came from China. It was imported, through shipping containers and a variety of things to get into the United States. Now it's kind of shifted to where a lot of it comes into Mexico, and a lot of it is if the demand is there. People are going to try to fill it. And I think we need to really go after and educate the public on the dangers of fentanyl. There are one-time uses that result in death because it's such a potent drug. And I think it's a multifaceted approach to working this dangerous drug that's in our community.
One of the things that is shocking is that it's incorporated into other drugs.
Right.
And so therefore people may think they're doing one thing, but they are actually at the same time doing fentanyl.
Yeah, you're correct. So fentanyl is laced into other drugs quite often. It's a substitute for so other opioids and things like that. And so people unwittingly take this very potent drug. And the people that are mixing it obviously aren't pharmacists, and so you never know what you're getting. And so the public should be very cautious about taking things that they didn't produce themselves.
As we're on the topic of drugs here, let's talk about marijuana, because
Right.
I think one of the things that has surprised me about the legalization in Nevada of marijuana is that police in general said, hey, the law changed, we don't have to enforce this anymore, but yet we didn't see havoc on the streets, havoc on the roads. What's your take on that?
Well,
you were part of drug enforcement and DEA.
So yes. So when we first came across medical marijuana, Metro, and I was part of that. I think I might have been the Investigative Services Division commander at the time. We reached out to the industry and said, okay, it's here. What do we need to do to ensure that it's legal? We're beyond that. The voters have spoken. What do we need to do to facilitate your business, right? And so we encouraged them to start an association, which they did, and we worked collaboratively with them to facilitate this new business into our community. When legalization came around, we did the same thing. We worked closely with the industry to identify issues with, because it's all cash business, you know, so those present challenges.
To say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. There's issues with investigations into, you know, illegitimate, distributors, right, and black marketers, and so I think, you know, we've worked closely with that industry over the last few years and made some headway. I actually introduced a bill because there was some frustration with the black market that it was still here. I introduced a bill to have civil penalties for anybody that was advertising that you were a marijuana distributor and you didn't have a license and or sales, so that you could go after civilly, because although there's still criminal violations on the books, we're just not getting prosecution there, and there's no appetite there's no jury appeal to get prosecution, and as a result, narcotics detectives and people just aren't going after those folks. And so they're operating with impunity, which legitimate business owners have invested a lot of money into these businesses, and they should be protected.
What about marijuana lounges? I mean, it seems insane. We talked about this with Tig Segerbloom on the program many times,
right.
That you have this legalized, but there's no way to consume it.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I supported marijuana lounges in this last legislative session is if you walk around anywhere, people can't smoke it in their hotel room, they technically can't smoke it in their car, so they're in parking garages, they're in, in places, and you smell it almost everywhere you go. And I think we're to the point where we need to provide a safe place, where people can consume, and marijuana lounges are there. I was part of the regulation process. I was on an advisory committee to put together some proposed regs that the commission should approve here pretty soon, or they've already done so that we can have safe places that people don't overconsume, and that we can have a good environment for people to enjoy this legalized drug.
All right, so if you go back 20, 30 years and to the penalties that people were getting, I remember in the 1970s meeting a carpenter who'd done 2 years in jail in Marin County for possession of a joint. How do you look at that and look at today?
Well, look, I've been around a while. I'm 57 years old, and I've seen a ton of changes in my lifetime. When I first entered into the military, zero tolerance on marijuana, as it still is today. And then transition into, I come to Nevada, I get out of the military, and I join Metro, and then possession of a seed, was a felony, which was
seed.
A seed was a felony back then, and then over time. Those laws have been slowly repealed, even though we still have criminal penalties for possession of large amounts for marijuana. It's moving into the civil realm, which you see in a lot of states. And look, our job as law enforcement, we can advocate and lobby at the legislature, which is what I did at one time in my career. But in the end, it's whatever our lawmakers and the public institute is the laws in the state, we're obligated to enforce.
All right, let's take a break. Back with Tom Roberts after this timeout.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org. SunDevTech.org.
Hi, I'm Renee Summerhour, digital news anchor here at 7 at 7. Watch our streaming nonstop newscast immediately with your mobile phone. 7 at 7 is the new way for you to get every bit of local news you need in just 7 minutes. Breaking news, local neighborhood news, weather, and sports are just a click away. Reporters bring you all of what's happening in the Valley. From Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Get every bit of local news you need from the RJ and LVRJ.com.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Assemblyman Tom Roberts. He's running for sheriff of Clark County. I wanted to ask you about the October 1 shootings.
Yes,
you were the investigative lead in that. At this point in time, with so much time to think about this, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it's no different than when we were there. And looking into this is sometimes you wonder, could the public or somebody done something earlier to prevent, to try to prevent this tragedy? And when, like, we had the assistance of the FBI and the Bureau, the BAU, the Bureau of Analytics Unit or whatever, Behavioral Analytics Unit. And when you look at the behavior of this individual, he didn't exhibit anything to where there was a point of intervention. We went through thousands of hours of videotape to see if anybody, worked with him, and we didn't find anybody else. And that's the thing that bothers you the most, is that could we do something, or could we learn something that could prevent this in the future? And I think we made some headway on the way the guy manipulated the security system and did some things to bring things in piecemeal into the room, and and room service issues and things like that. I think there's been a lot of changes that were made by the hotel industry. We've made a lot of changes from response and staffing in special events, so that you have contingencies in case you have a similar incident. I think we've learned a lot from it. But to this date, we lost 60 lives, and that's a tragedy. And I think what was great out of it was on October 2nd, as the community came together and we recovered from this thing. But still, it's still a terrible stain on our city, and it's really a tragic incident that I'll never forget.
Obviously you dealt with it as a cop, but how did you feel about it personally? I mean, did that change you in some way? The magnitude of it?
I don't know. Look, you see a lot of bad things over my career. I was a hostage negotiator. I saw a lot of bad things doing that job. And this one, I've been in a lot of tragic vehicle accidents and things like that. And I think what bothers you the most about something like this is these are people that are minding their own business, enjoying themselves at a concert, and some nut job with a gun decides to shoot everybody up, and that bothers you, right? And as a law enforcement, it's like, could we have done something to prevent this? Could we have done something better? And you internalize that. It's like, did we miss something, and could we have done something better? That's what really bothers you. And it really hit home for me. We walked the scene. Obviously, we worked the scene for several days. And you saw all the people that had been tragically shot out there. But when you started reading the first investigative report and the names, and you see the story of where they're from and where they were staying and things like that, and that's when it really starts to bother you a little bit, that's what bothered me, is it really personalized those individual stories and the way the community came out, and we started to really realize who these folks were. They were members of our community, some were tourists, and they tragically lost their lives just minding their own business, enjoying a concert.
All right, let's take another break. We'll be back more with Tom Roberts after this.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you. But we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take an Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Assemblyman Tom Roberts, who's running for Sheriff of Clark County. One of the things that you've been involved in, you mentioned it earlier, was as a hostage negotiator. Care to share a story with us on that?
Well, I spent, when I was a sergeant, up until I was a lieutenant several years ago, I was a hostage negotiator for 5 or 6 years. It's a part-time job. You know, you're on call. We go out with the SWAT team, and any kind of hostage barricade situation, we would go out, and a lot of times you wouldn't be necessarily the person on the phone doing the negotiation, although I did that quite a bit. We did a lot of intelligence gathering and provided real-time data to the SWAT commanders so that they could make good decisions based on what they had.
How does it differentiate between what you see in the movies and real life?
Quite a bit difference. I mean, it's a complete team atmosphere. We actually have a psychiatrist that responds to, and so we're able to provide all this real-time intel. We discuss it as a team on what our approach is with the person. We try to match our hostage negotiator with the personality of the suspect, and it was a very valuable job for me during my career. I was able to see how large tactical situations were ran. You know, time is on our side. We can always slow things down. De-escalation is the big thing in those. You don't necessarily have to rush in and do things. You can spend all the resources and time in the world. You know, if somebody's in by themselves, you don't have to push it. So I really learned a lot about that, and it was a great time in my career.
And does that help you as you look at the big picture, as you look at Metro, in terms of negotiating with the different branches of Metro?
I think it helped me quite a bit in understanding large tactical situations and not to let those things stress you out. I think it gave me very good communication skills, which I already had for the most part, but listening, is so much more important than talking, which is a big part of hostage negotiating, is listening to the person and what they have to say and what their issues are. So I think I learned a lot of valuable lessons from that job.
All right, last question here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody's been waiting for this topic to come up. Bodies in Lake Mead in barrels. Your thoughts on, as Lake Mead has gone down, things are popping up. Are we going to see a lot more? We've got about a minute.
So, you never know. A lot of times people say, well, why do you find so many bodies in the desert out there in Las Vegas? Because we don't have a woods, and back east, everybody, buries people in the woods. At some time, maybe they dump bodies in the lake. If the lake continues to go down, we may find more evidence of past crimes.
Oscar Goodman made a comment that the mob didn't waste people in Nevada. They took them to California because they wanted to take the heat off the Nevada desert. But then at the same time, I remember Al Bramlett, for example, from the Culinary Union, was certainly buried out in the desert. That's where we got to leave it. Tom Roberts, we'll see you on the campaign trail.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it.
And we'll be right back.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. One of the things I love about the Carson Valley Inn here in beautiful downtown Minden is CV steak. I have eaten here so many times. Tell folks what they can expect when they come here to eat.
It's a beautiful room, great service. We have certified Angus beef, seafood, lamb, a great range of appetizers, and wonderful desserts. Jean-Michel's done a great job of selecting some beautiful wines for us. The customers love it, and we've got a great selection of cocktails as well. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology like this electronic eye that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you because trucks move America forward.
A parade sets the stage for the greatest show in the biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada.
It's a legacy that began over 100 years ago and continues today. The Reno Rodeo. Still the wildest, richest rodeo in the West. Keeping it old school at the Reno Rodeo 2022, June 16th to the 25th. For tickets, go to renorodeo.com.
That's it for this edition of Nevada Newsmakers. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching.